I'm King Link, and today we're doing a design review on Katamari Damacy Reroll, but really we're going to do a design review on the entire Katamari Damacy franchise. If you don't know about Katamari Damacy, this is the brainchild of Kita Takahashi. I'm going to just apologize for mispronouncing that name, I'll just assume I have. He's also known for Nabi Nabi Boy and Wadam, which I'm looking forward to covering when it finally reaches Steam. But there's something special about Katamari Damacy. A little background. I played Katamari Damacy back in the PS2 era when it initially came out. There was just something special at the time about the game. I got addicted to it and I ended up playing through the entire game in a few hours. Even replaying it now, I've completed the game in about 6 hours, so it's not a very long game, and yet it remains a game that has stuck with me for over 15 years. I've actually bought most of the Katamari games, starting with the original game, Katamari Damacy, We Love Katamari, Beautiful Katamari, Katamari Forever, and now, of course, Katamari Damacy Reroll. While most of these games are unique and different, this time I'm actually buying the same game as the original. So if this is one of my favorite franchises, let's talk about why. I think Katamari's strongest point is how unique Katamari is. In a world taken up with every type of shooter, combat, simulation game, and variations on all of them, Katamari instead asks you to collect objects and roll them up into a ball to make a star. Even the opening of Katamari is strange, odd, and wonderful in a bizarre way. The opening cutscene has your father, the king of the cosmos, confessing he broke the sky and destroyed all the stars in it and tasks you to recreate them. It's unconventional at the least. And from there, the player is going to roll up a ton of objects in a level, build a giant Katamari, and if the king deems it worthy, he'll place it in the night skies. If he doesn't, you can always try again, of course. What's interesting is that when it first came out, it felt very unique. As the player runs through the world and picks up objects, the world does get cleaner as you pass through an area multiple times, gathering bigger and bigger objects in your massive ball of stuff. There's really only a few games that are similar to this concept, such as Viscera Cleanup Detail, and even those are completely different games. Katamari is just a quirky game, and yet the series has stuck with me for a decade and a half. Part of it is because of... Okay, let me risk a copyright strike and turn the music up for a moment. That, of course, is a song from Katamari Damacy's soundtrack. It's one of my favorite songs called Lonely Rolling Star, but there's tons here. I actually also recommend Katamari on the Rocks if you're just trying to listen for a great song, though the entire soundtrack is quite brilliant in that odd way that it's showing there. Katamari Damacy actually won some Soundtrack of the Year awards when it first came out, which were very well deserved. Now, if you're a modern gamer, your first question is probably going to be, what else is there in Katamari? The answer is not much. This was a PS2 era game. Katamari Damacy is as simple a concept as it is unique. In the original Katamari Damacy, which Reroll actually reproduces perfectly, there are 20 stages with different layouts. Most of them are either making the largest ball or collecting the most objects of a specific type, such as the stage on screen right now is all about collecting twins. Pretty good concept, actually. 3 stages are different from this. One stage asks you to find the largest bear as you can, a second stage asks you to find the largest cow, and the third stage asks you to make a perfect 10-centimeter ball. And that's it. The later games are better because there are more objects, better UI, better gameplay, but this franchise is all about that strange and simplistic concept, collecting stuff. And yet, 15 years after launch, I still think it's an amazing game, and other people do seem to agree about it. I think it's a perfect example of how important the concept of a game is to the memorability of the game, rather than the quality of the game itself. Katamari Damacy found a huge player base and got a lot of attention for doing something different. A big part of this could be that the indie scene in 2004 wasn't as developed at the time, so strange, quirky games weren't the norm, and that's certainly part of it. But I have a feeling Katamari would still strike it big today. Unique games can still garner a lot of attention today, at least if players are looking for them. If players want the latest shooter, there's always going to be hundreds of games competing for that role. But when a truly unique game gets released, people tend to take notice. Papers, Please has been an amazing hit, for instance, and recognized by many players and journalists not because it's just a high-quality or polished game, but because it's something that players wouldn't have asked for, but enjoyed because there's nothing else like it. There's not a lot of games like Papers, Please, and most of them that are trying to be like it are trying to clamber onto the success of Papers, Please. Because people like Papers, Please, why not play a game just like it? And I think there's an important reason why there's not a major success story in those clones or copies of the formula. And in this we see a fundamental misunderstanding of Papers, Please. It's not exactly the gameplay that people like. Let's first talk about one more game. I may have also lied before. There is one game like Katamari Damacy. Its name is Wonderful End of the World, and in it, you're a large character made up of various objects who walk around a world collecting smaller objects to continue growing your character larger and larger. Now, of course, this is very similar to Katamari Damacy's concept, and yet it's not great. I liked The Wonderful End of the World when it first came out because it was similar to a game that I loved, Katamari Damacy, and that game had not reached PC or Steam yet. In hindsight now, The Wonderful End of the World isn't very good. The levels are too short, the game is too limited, and the growth of the character is noticeable versus a very slow increase in Katamari. The problem is Wonderful End of the World is only trying to be Katamari Damacy, whereas Katamari Damacy was just trying to be different, and that's what people flock towards, a game idea that they hadn't seen before. But if Katamari is a great game, what's the problem with a spiritual sequel to it? Why not make a game just like Papers, Please to get that same audience? It's because Katamari Damacy and Papers, Please aren't popular for what they are. They're popular because of what they aren't. They aren't games that rely heavily on other games, genres, tropes, or ideas to define them. Both Papers, Please and Katamari Damacy deliver unique experiences that players haven't seen before. And yes, someone will of course say, didn't some game have the same idea before? I'm sure some game is similar to either Katamari Damacy or Papers, Please, but most players weren't familiar with those other games when these two launched. When a game is truly unique, they stand out because the player hasn't played those other games before, and the experience stays with the player long after, even if other games do the same thing. Slay the Spire is one of the first games that flipped the idea of deck building and started to develop players' decks during the game, rather than making the game a collectible card game. This now feels like a weekly release of a clone of Slay the Spire's system, but Slay the Spire is the game that changed the industry. As good as Neoverse or Ring of Pain or any similar game is, Slay the Spire is going to be remembered as the one that created the genre. They've made their mark in history, and I have to applaud them for it. Of course, there's a lot more to this formula. Many unique ideas will fail because of other issues. Just having a unique idea such as a new control scheme and a first-person shooter with using both analog sticks isn't enough. Several reviews of Alien Resurrection for the PlayStation 1 actually bashed the twin-stick control aspects of the FPS, though part of that is of course due to other issues with the game. Delivering a high-quality and polished game is always going to be important. It's what sells the original idea and will help a game become financially successful. It's ludicrous to think that just a unique idea can outweigh the need for quality control on the final product. It really doesn't. But starting with a different idea actually creates the ability to make something unique, different, and that's what will ultimately stand this test of time. That's why Katamari Damacy, Papers, Please, and perhaps even Slay the Spire will likely be remembered far longer than many games that imitate others, because when you're just one of the many, you'll eventually be supplanted by a game that imitates you as well. But if what makes you special is how unique your concept was, well, any follow-up that tries the same thing will be unable to replace you, since they would have to also be different than you. I actually had a lot of games I was thinking of bringing up and talking about for this review, but have cut this down, and just for a quick list of games I think fit the concept is FTL, Tales from the Off-Peak City Volume 1, Her Story, American and European truck simulators, as well as the simulation genre in general, Animal Crossing, and then there are the massive games such as Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto 3, which both have created entirely new genres out of their releases. And as a takeaway, when you hear about how unique a game is, don't think about what makes it unique or what you're told makes it unique, but also consider how much of the concept in the game itself is unique. That alone may help you to realize if it's going to be a game that will be memorable for decades, or one that will be replaced as soon as someone else does the concept better. It's often marketing speak to hear a company talk about how different their concepts are or how visionary their designers are. But the truly unique games don't require players to be told how special they are. Players will notice that in the gameplay and experiences that they haven't had before, and that's what will stick with them. And they'll also, of course, discuss that with other people. So those are my thoughts on Katamari Damacy Reroll. It's a really fun game, and while there are some complaints I have, mostly in features that were available in the sequels, as well as having a few more locations available would have been great, a lack of autosave, and admittedly the graphics are still from the PlayStation 2 era, it's still a fantastic game and I adore it as much as I did the original. Also, it finally has achievements, so that's a huge benefit. And I want to take a fast moment here at the end of this video to thank all my subscribers. I actually just broke 1,000 subscribers in between these last two videos, and that's a massive milestone. I honestly never thought I'd be here. I hope the growth can continue, of course. And if you're not already a subscriber, there's no better time than now. And if you are a subscriber, of course, thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it, and it always helps out. I'll pop up a couple videos here, including my video on achievements and trophies and why they matter. Click on them if you want to see more from me. Until then, I'm King Link, and thank you for watching.